Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Here is our amazing guest. Would you like to introduce yourself and give everyone a brief life story synopsis?
Well, hi guys. My name is Eliza Sanders, and I am the current Miss Historic Greenville's Outstanding Teen over in Kingsport. And my platform is also adoption. I was adopted when I was a baby, and I know of a lot of other friends that have been adopted, and I know of a lot of families that have gone through the foster care process to adopt. So that's always been a passion of mine. It was kind of my platform before I needed to have a pageant platform. I was adopted when I was a year old, and I kind of don't know my full exact story of the reason why, but it was during the one child policy. I've always made the assumption that that is why, but I guess I'll never really know for sure. When I was adopted, I was not brought to an orphanage. I was actually found me in front of a candy factory, and then I was brought to an orphanage. But I always say that that's why I have a sweet tooth.
What is the main goal of your platform and how does it relate to adoption?
I want as many children as possible to be able to have a forever family. And I know looking at the statistics, that sounds crazy because there's so many children right now without families. But I look at it as if you can help just one person, like that's amazing. That is another child that can grow up with a loving family and a warm and loving home. When I was adopted, my family and my parents would always tell me my adoption story, and they would always just say, families are forever. So I definitely want to make sure that all of the children, or just as many children as possible, will be able to have their own forever family.
And you are an advocate for, tell me if I'm wrong, Isaiah?
Isaiah 117, yeah.
Yes. Do you think you could elaborate on that a little bit?
The Isaiah 117 house is a house for kids that are going into the foster care system. And I know there are a lot of kids, whenever they are going into the foster care system, they actually have to be removed from the house. And so it's a very traumatic experience. And oftentimes they're removed pretty immediately, so they don't have a lot of time to grab things that they need, like their belongings. And so the Isaiah 117 house is just a place for them to stay. It might even just be one night, but it's an actual home. I've been to one of them, and then I've actually been to one that they are currently in construction for. But it's an actual house, and so it's very warm and loving, and it's a lot better than them staying in just a social worker place that can be very dreary, especially when they've just gone through something very traumatic. And when I went to visit one, the upstairs area was actually filled with books and toys, hygiene items, different clothing items, because the last thing that we want them to have to worry about is if they packed a toothbrush or not. So they have all those items to be able to provide for them before they go into the foster care system.
So how exactly is that house being affected due to COVID-19? And is there anything we can do to support it?
Right now, it is still in effect because it's a necessity. The governor has been super impressed with the Isaiah 117 house, and he actually wants to have one in every single county, which is amazing. But unfortunately, they don't have funds from the government right now. It's a nonprofit organization, and so just like individual communities being able to get together and us, like people like me, being able to go to those different communities and speak to them about how important it would be to have an Isaiah 117 house. That way they can get the community support behind it so they'll be able to actually build one. It's still a growing process.
What other advocacy or service projects have you done that's related to adoption?
This does have to do with the Isaiah 117 house, but it's something that I've worked really hard with. I did something back in January, and it was called the Smile Project, and I had a drive for different dental hygiene items to be donated to the Isaiah 117 house, and that was absolutely amazing. I never thought that it would get as big as it got. I kind of started it within my school, and then the students would bring in lots of items, like people that I didn't even really know would just like stop me in the hallway and be like, hey, I bought some toothbrushes for you. But then the community also really came together and they donated a ton of items. So I was able to give those to the Sullivan County Isaiah 117 house, which is the county that is in my hometown. And then the county that I'm representing, which is Greenville, I was able to give half of it to the Greenville County as well. So that has been really amazing. And then with adoption, since when I was a baby and when I was adopted, my parents were actually a part of this organization called the China Angels, and it's just a bunch of adopted children from China that are in our area, and we all have gotten together for different things throughout the year. We have a harvest moon every year, and we have Chinese New Year, so that's been really nice to be able to grow up with people that had the same story that I did, that knew my experience. In a place like Tennessee where there might not be a ton of diversity, it was really cool to be able to grow up with people of the same ethnicity and people that were also adopted. And that organization that we have is still going. So we have lots of new babies from China that are just coming in. So it's really cool to be able to see that next generation and to be able to talk to those families and support them financially even in their adoption process. There is also another group that is called Show Hope, and Steve is Curtis Chapman, the Christian artist. That's actually his organization, and that just helps people financially with the adoption process, whether that's international or domestically. So I've gotten to support him and donate to his organization as well.
There's some ways that adoptees like me who aren't necessarily in diversified areas, what are some ways that they can start to find their sense of belonging when they don't have these support groups?
I know that right now social media is huge, which is super cool because that's how we met. And so I think it's really amazing that you can just reach out, and even by looking at a little hashtag that says adoption, you can see those different children that are advocating for adoption or the different families that are currently wanting to adopt, and then reaching out to them through social media to be able to contact them, just talk to them about their story and your story, and just having that really good support group.
And going back to the topic about parents adopting, there's definitely been a decline statistically in parents that are looking to adopt internationally. And I know you and I were both internationally adopted. Why do you think those numbers are dropping?
I don't know particularly why, like the exact reason that those numbers are dropping. I know that domestic adoption is very difficult, and it can be very just hard and stressful. One of the families that I know that is adopted domestically, they had problems with terminating the birth father's rights even. And so they got to have that child, but they had her in their home for about 4 years before they were actually officially able to adopt her. So they had her from day one, and then they raised her, but throughout them raising her, they didn't actually know if they were going to be able to keep her or not because of how long it took for the government to be able to process things. And so I know that obviously you want to make sure that you have the background checks and you want the child to end up in the right home and the home that's going to be best for them. But just being able to terminate those rights faster would be amazing, because I know that people want to adopt domestically, but it can be a very hard process as far as just timing goes. And I know adoption internationally and even domestically for that matter, financial things is that's a very big thing. It takes a lot. I mean, you are traveling to another country to adopt a child, and then of course having it's like having a baby, because you have to be able to buy the diapers and buy the food, and just getting your home approved to be able to start the adoption process is huge.
And obviously right now there's not like a halt to adoption, but it's definitely harder. I know there was just recently the immigration ban, but they did announce that that does not affect international adoption. But for those parents that are kind of in a limbo right now because of the pandemic, what is your best advice for those who are in the long process and just wanting to get to the destination? What is your advice to support them and just give them the motivation to keep going?
Have hope is the biggest thing that I can say. I was adopted, but after I was adopted, we actually went back to China to adopt my little sister Lydia. And that took us 4 years. It was a very, very long process, and I was very young when that happened. So we started the adoption process when I would have been 3, but I can remember us like waiting for that referral picture, or them saying, you know, you have a child, but then things not working out. And so we really questioned for a while, like, are we supposed to be doing this again? Like, are we supposed to, is this our calling? Is God leading us to adopt again? He just kept saying, you know, like you just hang in there because you're gonna have the right child. And throughout that process, I realized, you know, if we had gone any earlier to get my little sister, that it wouldn't have been my little sister. And timing is just an incredible thing. So I know that the process can be long and hard and really stressful, but honestly, hang in there and it's going to be amazing. Timing is everything, and God's got you, and you're going to get the child that you are meant to have and have your forever family.
You're so inspirational. I can't. Oh my gosh. Wow. Major stereotype that is placed on any sort of adoption. A lot of people, they don't want to go through the long process because they think you're going to do all of this work and then you're going to end up with a child that either has behavioral or actual health issues. So, what is a way that we can debunk this stereotype?
I think something that you have to think about is just looking past the statistics and realizing that, you know, they're a person, and not every child is going to have behavioral issues or have like health issues. But I mean, even if they do, those children are still children, and they still need love and support, and they still need a family. Something that my Spanish teacher does this thing, and he is very big on just international needs and things like that. And he has motivational Mondays. And so one day he was talking to us, and this is something that really opened up my eyes. He said that we have to look past all these stereotypes. You know, people are people, and not everyone is going to be the same just because they came from a broken home or because they were in foster care. Not everyone's going to be the same. But something that I always think about is, even if they are, love them anyways, because they still have needs and they still need a family.
I agree. That's a very good point to bring up because one thing that unites us all is that we all have a passion or desire for something in our lives, and that's what makes us successful in the end is that passion. And there's such a stereotype around people, something very big, but only carried out by a small amount of people can completely define an entire group when that might not even be the case for 90% of them. So I think it is really important, especially when you do connect it to adoption. You're not hearing the amazing success stories. Like, I mean, I think we turned out pretty good, but to further elaborate on that, we're not defined by the small amount of percentages where there can be an issue. So coming back around, can you kind of explain where you are, some of your accomplishments?
Well, I have been dancing since I was 3 years old, and it's always been something that I have loved. I've always been very passionate about the arts. I think that they are just wonderful, and I really enjoy being involved with them. And so 2019 summer, I was able to attend Governor School for the Arts. And if you are unfamiliar with what that is, anybody, it is the governor has these different schools that are specifically for those different like achievements. And so he has one, I think there's a governor's school for math, there's one for science, and so he has them for everything. But within the governor's school, there are like specific things that you can take. And so I was accepted for governor's school for dance. And I got to spend an entire month at MTSU. And I got to just stay on that college campus for a month. And every day, it's like I would wake up and I would just go to ballet classes. And I got to have a really good college experience of if I wanted to major in dance, like what that would be like. So it was really cool and really special. And I actually got some good college credit for it.
Okay, Queen, I see you. Going off of your platform and how us people in the Miss America organization are always looking for something to do in COVID, hence why you are here today and everyone watching. What is something we can do to support your platform and your mission during quarantine?
Something that I have done, I have started Forever Family Fridays, and there are people that and families that I know that have adopted, whether that be domestically, internationally, or through foster care, and they are just telling their story. So it's kind of like this, how we are just through the internet, through social media, are being able to spread the word about adoption while everyone is just kind of in this lull. And like I said, the Isaiah 117 house is essential. Like foster care is still happening. You know, we are inside of our houses with our families, being quarantined with COVID-19, but there are those foster kids that are also still needing a family. So foster care is still in effect, and there's still organizations that are still happening and having to continue their mission as well.
You touched on a whole lot of topics, so I wanted to thank you again for joining us today and for everyone watching. But before we go, do you have any final words that you would like to give to everyone watching?
Thank you so much for watching and taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit more about adoption and about my story personally. I will encourage you guys just to keep on remembering that. And even if it is not, if you don't feel like it is your call to personally adopt, there's still so many ways that you are able to help just by spreading the word or having awareness or even just helping out families that might be in the adoption process. So thank you guys so much.